Hello and welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. Today we are in Bozeman, Montana at the Museum of the Rockies. This is a big museum and I am thinking that it is put on by the University of Montana. Is that correct?
Yes, we are basically a department of Montana State University.
Okay.
And we are also a 501c3 individual nonprofit museum as well. So it's we have a unique hybrid model.
Okay, this is really cool. It's a big museum. I was here probably 10, 12 years ago. Very nice museum. You guys have some neat traveling exhibits that come through, which is why I am here today. But to get started, we are here with Alicia and with Michael. Michael's going to be our main guide. Alicia is the one that's in charge of...
marketing and all things fun.
There you go. Thank you for stepping in on that.
You're welcome.
And we're going to talk a little bit real quick about what the museum is. There's several museums in one here, correct?
There are. We have paleontology, cultural history, astronomy, changing exhibits, living history, and early education and learning exhibits.
Could you put more in the building?
Oh yes, we could, but we get a little cramped.
Right.
Oh wait, we have a 220 seat auditorium for lectures and public events.
Oh geez. So you guys cover a lot of ground.
We sure do.
Certainly do.
This is probably going to end up being a two-part podcast, maybe even a three-part.
Maybe four.
Maybe four. We'll see how long they want to spend today. I'm probably good for the whole day if I need to be. But I am excited to be here again. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your hours, your fees, and some of that stuff, Alicia?
Absolutely. We are happy to welcome visitors from around the world 7 days a week to Museum of the Rockies. We're closed on major U.S. holidays, but other than that, we're open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Our rates range up from free for those age 0 to 4 up to $23 per adult to come in. There we honor discounts like AAA, AARP, and military discounts. So come on in and also check out the website for what rates are currently on for the season.
Now, are those rates daily, or is that a 2-day pass, or how does that work?
Yep, those are daily rates, but you can come and go all day. So if you come in the morning, want to go out for lunch and come back, those rates are good all day.
Okay. I just know some museums, they have like a 2-day or 3-day pass thing, and so thought I'd clarify that.
Yep, and then our planetarium shows, if you're not a member or not a member of the ASTC Travel Passport Program, planetarium shows are $4 each.
Okay, and that's over and above?
That's over and above,
And
yes.
how often do those play?
We have 6 to 7 shows that run daily.
Oh, wow. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's exciting. And we also have shows in the Hager Auditorium that are free with your admission, that are included with your admission.
Okay. And do you guys have special events in the yeah.
Yes, we do have special events ongoing.
Like laser light shows and some of that kind of stuff? That's what I'm looking for. I just can't remember the word observatory.
Right.
Here we go with Loren's.
We haven't had the laser light shows in years, but you never know what might come in the future. Our website will have all that info, but currently we don't do the laser light shows.
I didn't know if you had special events like for Halloween or Easter or Christmas or some of that kind of stuff.
We do. We have Pour and Gore, a spirited good time for adults, which includes a custom planetarium show, a spooky, eerie seance, and really fun things for adults here in October. And then we have a family grossology day where children of all ages can come dressed up and have really spooky, fun, family-friendly events. Like you can look at your boogers under a microscope projected onto a big screen. And,
how awesome is that?
You know, for little kids and slime, all the things. And so we have Halloween-themed events for all ages.
And what about Christmas and
Yes, we
those
have
other
a homestead holiday where we'll open up our Tinsley house, where Michael will take you out to later at the Living History Farm. And we have really fun circa 1890s style Christmas traditions that you can come take a part in.
Great.
That's cool. That's way cool. And other things that you might want to mention before I get started with Michael taking a tour through the museum.
Yeah, it's a good 3 to 4 hour visit when you're here, coming through Bozeman. Bring your family, bring your friends. We'd love to see you and share the Northern Rockies with you.
And Bozeman's such a cool place anyway.
So cool.
I mean, it's a college town, but it's also got a lot of other things. You're not far from Yellowstone National Park. In fact, you're kind of on the way right off of Interstate 90. There's good restaurants. It's
great hotels.
It's a great little town.
Yeah, it sure is. And we have free parking and free Wi-Fi.
Ooh, free parking and Wi-Fi, even overnight?
No parking overnight, but you can stay as long as the museum's open.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time, Alicia, and I guess we'll get started with Michael here.
Sure. Again, I'm Michael Fox. I'm the curator of history here at Museum of the Rockies, and I'm going to just take you straight into the history hall.
Let's get going. Yep, I dropped the microphone. Okay, as we come in here, there's a big, nice lobby with the admissions booth. You've got a nice gift shop, stairs, elevators, so I guess you've got more than one level.
We do. We have 3 levels. So, yeah, I'm going to quickly run you through this traveling exhibit, and then we'll start in the history hall.
Okay. The traveling is as we're walking into this traveling exhibit, we have a great big dragon here. That yeah, it's big.
Yes, it's called Mythic Creatures, and it'll be here for a while, but we turn over traveling exhibits pretty often because we're one of the few venues in the state of Montana that can handle large exhibits. So, our focus at Museum of the Rockies is really the culture and paleontology and culture of the Northern Rocky Mountain region.
Okay.
But since we have these huge changing exhibit galleries, we want to, bring the world to Montana as well. So you'll see things that are otherwise not covered in the our usual galleries. So it's it kind of works both ways. We say we take Montana to the world, and we bring the world to Montana as well.
Okay, and I think that when I was here last, you guys had a big display on Da Vinci that was a traveling
That's right.
Deal, and I think I also saw one. Did you guys have the human body exhibit?
We did not have that.
Okay, I saw that someplace else. Yes, Linda.
I don't know where they're going.
Yes, okay. They'll be in here. So.
They're going to go down the dance.
Yep.
What are we doing?
I was worried about the kids.
Oh.
Yeah, we will try.
Okay. What about King Tut? Was King Tut here?
We did have a King Tut show here.
Then I think I saw that one here also.
Yes, we try and have a pretty good sized blockbuster every summer for sure. And sometimes those go into different parts of our year. So.
Okay.
No, that is
Wow, as we're walking through this display, we're going to come back to this later.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, because there's so much I want to see, but we've got unicorns and dragons and dugongs and just all kinds of cool stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be exciting to get back to.
Yes. Well, this is our Cultural History Hall. And you are here at a very unusual time because we are just about to start basically reinstalling everything related to cultural history here. So
is history changing?
The interpretation of history. History doesn't change. The interpretation of history is constantly changing.
And what do we do with the interpretation? This is something that I'm really interested in, and I know it's a rabbit hole, and I have a tendency to go down a lot of rabbit holes.
Not a problem.
But how is it that history can change? I mean, the events and the facts and everything are pretty much set in stone because that's the way they happened. But somehow or another, interpretation and politics and everything else seems to get involved in such a way that I don't know if it destroys or disrupts or what it does. Maybe you can help me out with this.
Absolutely. Well, of course, as you mentioned, the dates, the facts, the personalities, the people, are set in stone. They're in the past. However, the way that you interpret those changes over time. So, for example, the way that we look at the Civil War today is not really the same way as they looked at the Civil War in 1900.
Right.
So
that's one of the things I've noticed in traveling the South.
Yes.
Is the Civil War has taken on a whole different dynamic than what I was taught in school, or what I've learned from history books that were written maybe back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. I mean, slavery was an issue, but slavery wasn't the whole issue. But now it seems that slavery is the whole issue.
And it depends on who is telling the story. So if you have a person who was a heavy supporter of the Confederacy and the Confederate idea back in 1900, what you're going to see is something that reflects that individual person's biases and ideas, and their ideas for how the information they're presenting will be used in the future. However, as time goes on, people change their what they think is actually the important thing, and even during, say, you had this writer in the 1900s, 1900. If you talk to a different historian, maybe a northern historian, they had a very different view of that. Classic example of this is the story of the American West. There are people who, back in the 1980s, created something that was kind of culturally known as the New Western History.
Okay.
Well, obviously the history itself didn't change, but the way that it was interpreted did change. And so, culturally speaking, the history of the American West up until the 80s was basically one glorious story of Americans civilizing the American West as they moved westward.
Right.
However, that left out a lot of the controversies and problems that dealt with. So, for example, the fact that there were already a large number of people in the West when Americans started to come out here, and they were largely ignored in the history. Also, women. There were large numbers of women who came out as well, but they were you don't basically see that in American history of the West in the earlier days. Well, in the 1980s, scholars went back and said, hey, these are stories that are important, and they're not reflected in popular history. So they go back, they look at the same materials or new materials that they have found, or materials that were ignored by earlier historians, and they come back and say, we're going to tell a fuller, more complete story of what these events were and what they meant. So, of course, earlier people who were very attached to those earlier stories are saying, oh, you're changing history. Well, you're not changing it. You're simply changing the focus of what things you're looking at. So that's how it changes over time.
Okay. And are those changes accurate, or are those changes a lot of times interpretive for societal gain? I mean, there's things that are brought up now politically, like tearing down all of the statues, let's say, or different things, along those lines. Are those interpretations that they are basing their actions on actually more correct than the other interpretations, or are those interpretations just as warped as what was being written at the time about excluding the natives or excluding the women, or
Well, the idea is when someone comes up with a new interpretation, the idea is that they do not completely dismiss all the history that was done before. Their job is to make the history as written more nuanced.
Okay.
It brings in new source materials, or source materials that were overlooked in the past. The concept is to give a broader interpretation, not to denigrate or desecrate what was done in the past by adding more information to the overall story. The idea is it can incorporate what was said in the past. However, it's looked at in a different way because you've got different and new source materials.
So you're working more on a complete story versus a biased one way or the other story, or hopefully that's the outcome.
Well, the whole thing is that throughout the entire history of recording history, there's always been bias in it, because whoever is recording it is putting their spin on it. This is their interpretation of what it is. So bias in history is unavoidable. It's really, for professional historians, it's looking at the evidence. Does this evidence support this new interpretation? If it doesn't, it'll be discarded.
Okay. So in other words, had Germany won, our history would have looked a lot different.
It definitely would have.
As far as the interpretation of the Allies' activities.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's another kind of popular euphemism, is that the winners write the history.
Yep. So anyway, sorry about going down the rabbit hole.
Not a problem.
Let's continue to go through the gallery here.
Certainly. What we have in this gallery is a big square gallery, and we're looking at many different kind of standalone topics, but that they all come together to tell a single story.
Okay, and is this Bozeman kind of specific story, or is this?
This is regional. We're a regional museum, so what we do is Montana, parts of Wyoming and Idaho, and actually a little bit of Canada as well.
Oh.
Basically following the Northern Rockies.
Okay.
Within that region, however, we have high mountains, we have high plains. So if you go to eastern Montana, you'll notice it's flat plains. It's not, I mean, you can see the Rockies way, way off in the distance, but that's a different whole ecosystem and kind of a different culture as well.
Well, even driving the High Line up across Havre and Browning in that area, you can see Canada, but it's 50 miles away.
Exactly.
And it's flat, and I don't know how long it takes to farm some of that acreage, because there's thousands and thousands of acres up there.
Yes, and it's very different type of farming. A lot of that farming is what we call dry farming. In other words, they don't have irrigation.
Right.
Whereas you can do that pretty easily out here in closer to the mountains where you've got lots of water. Out there, you don't have that water. So they're practicing a type of farming that can be radically different than this. All of that is part of the history of the Northern Rockies. It's an extremely diverse area, and a lot of different cultures are represented within that area as well. So.
Right. Yeah, we just came through Yellowstone Park on our way up here, which is all mountainous and geothermal. And in fact, you've got, 3 or 4 different commercialized hot springs around here. I know you've got Chico, you've got
Bozeman Hot Springs.
Bozeman, you've got, starts with an N. It's at a junction just south of here.
Oh, Norris.
Norris
Hot Springs. We have White Sulphur Springs. There's one over by Anaconda. So yes.
And this is all very mountainous, very, very rugged country.
Right.
And versus the plains.
Exactly.
Yes. Very diverse.
But it's all part of the story. So.
Okay, and as we come in, we're greeted with a old Oldsmobile touring car that's parked in front of a gas station with one of the old hand pump gas pumps and an oil barrel. And
this is representative of Montana in the 1930s and during the Depression. So this is really all about the 1930s, and we discuss what the Depression meant here. A lot of it was actually climatic change. You've heard of the Dust Bowl.
Right.
Our Dust Bowl started earlier than most places. It started in the 20s. Okay. So that was something that primarily affected our farmers and ranchers to the east and north of us here. But the economy started to decline based on that. Our two main economic drivers during the 1930s here were mineral extraction and farming.
Right.
So, once farming started to decline, the rest of the economy started to go downhill as well. After about 1929, with the market crash and the rest of the Dust Bowl, the entire country was plunged into that. But Montana was well on the way prior to the nationwide depression. So we're talking a little bit about that here, and and what that meant for communities throughout the state.
Now they had a really big photography government-sponsored program that covered a lot of the farming and homesteading pictures and lifestyles and that kind of stuff that came through in the 1930s. I can't remember what the project was called, but
Yes.
I've seen a lot of those pictures, and it's really revealing. I mean,
it is, yes, and it was a group that was worked through the Work Projects Administration, and they sent photographers all over the United States. So the photographers came through here as well, and they really documented things like life in Butte, Montana, which was our huge copper mining area.
Oh yeah.
They documented how conditions were deteriorating on the plains, and really kind of everything in between. But you can look at WPA photos of Montana during that period, compare those to Appalachia or Nebraska or Texas, and we're all kind of in that same climatic situation, which is the Dust Bowl.
and a lot of them are pretty desperate looking photos.
Very desperate looking. Yes, people were looking to escape those areas. That's where you got a lot of people moving from the far
Oklahoma
Texas plain states to places like California, and a number of those came to Montana as well.
Okay.
So
Then you have quite a few more wagons in here. You've got a water wagon, you've got a surrey, a spring wagon.
This is a buggy, yes.
Buggy, or what are we looking at here? Model,
This is a Model A.
Yeah. And you've got some nice wagons, a coach, Yellowstone
Yes.
coach. Now, Moneta to Yellowstone.
This is a company, a transportation company that served Yellowstone from the late 1890s through about the 19-teens, when automobiles were introduced.
Okay.
So this is the Moneta and Yellowstone route. Moneta is a railroad stop.
Okay.
On the railroad, and this is on the west side of the park. So this coach transported people from the railroad station on the west side of the park into the park, and really all around the park, to all of the hotels, to the thermal features, that kind of stuff. So they were all traveling by stagecoach.
Okay. And then you have a sheep wagon.
Sheep wagon.
Which the sheep herders would tend the sheep. Now, was Bozeman area a big sheep area, or were they more cattle?
We tend to be more cattle, but we certainly did have sheep. The big sheep ranching areas of the state were farther east, like around the Billings area out there. There were like oceans of sheep out there, and we became one of the, if not the largest wool producers in the United States for many years. And that
they still do wool in Billings.
They do still have wool, but not nearly on the scale that we used to. And yes, so the sheep wagons are very emblematic of that period. And the way these are used are individual herders are taken out to very remote areas where the sheep are grazing. And that's like their camper. That's their home during the season.
It's the original motorhome.
It's basically the original motorhome. That is exactly what it is.
They always had a camp stove in there,
There's
and a bed, and
covers.
Drawers. It's amazing what all you can put into one of those
Absolutely.
things.
You've got your kitchen there. You've got your sleeping quarters. You've got places for storing all your tack and equipment and that kind of stuff.
And I like the way you have it displayed. You've got the top off of it so that you can see inside. And
yes.
And
for many, many years we had the top on it, and we got to the point where we wanted to replace it. But we have had such positive feedback on being able to see what's inside of it that we have left it off kind of temporarily. So
I think it's a good deal. Maybe just covering up the front half or something.
that's what the longer term plan is. So we've got we have the top. We just haven't put it on completely yet.
You've got an airplane hanging from the ceiling.
We do,
which it looks like a 20s model.
Yes, and actually I think this was made about 1930, 31, and this is an airplane that was built on a ranch out in eastern Montana. A couple of brothers built it from a kit themselves.
Did the kit come from Sears and Roebuck?
No, this was the designer, a guy named Pete and Paul, and he basically just drew out the drawings, and you would buy the drawings. You have to find all the materials yourself.
Oh, wow.
So this is powered by a Model T Ford engine.
Oh, wow, that's even a fairly heavy engine.
Yes, it is. Overall, the aircraft is really light compared to aircraft today, but yeah, engine's kind of heavy. And this was a two-person aircraft, so you could take a passenger with you.
Open cockpit.
Yep, open cockpit. And the guys who built this, they didn't really have any particular use for it other than they thought it'd be fun to have an airplane. So they built this basically in their garage.
Wow. Kind of like secondhand Lions.
Exactly the same idea. Same idea. So, we hit a couple of other topics in here. One is gold mining. We also have copper mining as well. But in the early days, this was the draw to bring Americans and Euro-Americans out to Montana. We're kind of slow in getting going. Prior to 1863, which was our first big gold rush, there were hardly any Euro-Americans here at all. It was basically full-on indigenous Native American country. So
it wouldn't have anything to do with the weather, would it?
Has a lot to do with the weather, yes. So yeah, tough winters up here. But also it was largely, pretty unexplored.
But yet Lewis and Clark came through here. I mean, the first westward expansion or exploration all came
from Lewis and Clark.
From Lewis and Clark, and they all came right through this area.
They came right through this area. They actually came basically right through the area where Bozeman is right now. So yeah, there was some mapping of it, but there were obviously a lot of blank spots on that map. So yes, it really wasn't until 1863 we had a big gold rush in Bannack, Montana, which was our first territorial capital.
And if you've never been to Bannack is well worth the 30-mile out-of-your-way trip to go see. They have done a very nice job of preserving that ghost town.
It really is. It's a state historic site. And yes, many of the original buildings are still there. It's really quite impressive. And one of the reasons that it wasn't all torn down is it's in a pretty remote area.
Right.
So these buildings all survived. And it's a great look at an early gold mining town, how it was set up, and incredible stories.
It is. I visited there once, and I'm excited to go back again.
Good.
And then you've also got Virginia City and Nevada City, which at one point in time was to be the capital of Montana.
Right.
But
that's the second territorial capital. And then when Helena, Montana started to boom, which was after Virginia City, they moved it to there as well. So that was our territorial capital, and it is now the state capital. So a lot's going on. Helena,
not Virginia City.
Not Virginia City.
Yes,
Virginia City was for a little while, but ultimately Helena became the state capital.
And if you want a really fun day, Virginia City and Nevada City are really, really cool. And not too far from either one of those, you've got your Lewis and Clark Caverns, which...
That's right.
And that's all, 45 minutes, an hour from here? Hour and a half?
Yeah, it's about an hour or so.
Yeah, it's not that far from Bozeman, so it'd be an easy day trip if you were staying in Bozeman, visiting this museum, to take a day trip down to Virginia City, Nevada City, Lewis and Clark Caverns, and have a really nice day trip.
Absolutely. It'd be kind of a long day, but it can definitely be done. The caverns are amazing. A really fantastic geological formation there. Fantastic rooms full of stalactites and stalagmites, and it's a guided tour through there. Lewis and Clark never went there.
Okay.
But they're named for Lewis and Clark because Lewis and Clark, would have been in sight of that place. So.
Well, and there's all kinds of Lewis and Clark connotations around here. I mean, you got the Clarkswork River and Lewiston, Idaho. I mean, Lewis and Clark are big here.
Absolutely.
And they should be.
Yes, and we're the headwaters of the Missouri River. And when Lewis and Clark came through here, they named each of those headwater rivers, the Madison, the Jefferson, and the Gallatin, based on their sponsors back in Washington. So Gallatin, Gallatin was the Secretary of Treasury. Jefferson was the president, and Madison the vice president.
Right.
So yes, Lewis and Clark's all over the place here.
They weren't brown nosers at all, were they?
They knew who were paying the bills. They knew who they had to submit the bills to at the end of the trip. So yes.
Now it looks like we're getting into the trapping section here, where you've got some hides, some old flintlock firearms, a bear trap. Well, bear to muskrat, so you got large to small. You've got an old military cannon. I'm assuming that was probably Indian Wars era.
So Indian Wars era, yes.
And
we've got a couple of quilts. This is a quilt display as well. We have a pretty hefty sized collection of historic quilts here. There's about 96 of them, and we've just got a few on display here. Yes. We rely almost exclusively on donations. So,
really?
Yes. So whatever people feel like donating, they want to preserve their own family history, this is the place where they come.
Wow. That's amazing. And they're all the hand sewn, and I can't even imagine how much time it took to create one of these works of art.
Well, in the earlier days, they had a lot of time on their hands. But
I don't know how that could be. That's another interpretation of history that I don't understand, because you had long winters, but there was always wood to chop, wood to haul, houses to clean, food to cook. And if you were a ranch wife of any type, you were cooking 3 meals a day for 10 guys because they didn't have the machinery. Right. And you were expected to feed all of them. And then you may have had children, like 10 or 12, because you couldn't afford the 10 or 12 hired hands.
That's exactly right.
So when did they have time to sit down and sew a quilt? Before dark, when they didn't have any electric lights.
No, that's right. Winter. And also at church, they don't work on Sundays. And a lot of quilts during the 19th century were made collectively. So there would be a group of women get together to work on one quilt.
Oh, okay.
So it's not just one person sitting in her log cabin doing this. It's a group. It's a group effort. So.
Well, I know even with all of our modern conveniences, if I started on a quilt that was as intricate as that one, I would be on it for 3 or 4 years, trying an hour every night while I was watching YouTube or whatever else. And I just can't imagine where they got the time. Cows to milk, chickens to feed.
Absolutely.
I think the concept of a lot of downtime is kind of rough when you.
Oh, it definitely is, and it depended. Are you a homesteader or are you a banker's wife? So it depends. It's like who's making it.
Still, right?
Exactly. So
this is interesting. You've got a couple of headstones here, it looks like.
Yes, and the 2 headstones came from a cemetery about 10 miles outside of town here, and they record one person who was killed by Native Americans here. Okay. And one that is recording the death of an entire family due to smallpox.
The whole family, it is.
The entire family.
You've got, what, 10 dates on there?
Yep.
Wow.
So an entire family.
They're both made out of wood.
Yes. So they're rare because they're made out of wood. Usually those deteriorate pretty quickly over time. Right. But out here, the weather is so dry that it doesn't deteriorate in quite the same way. So we have a lot of wooden structures and wooden artifacts in the Northern Rockies that are preserved much longer than, say, if they had been in Louisiana.
Right. Oh yeah. No, we did a podcast down in New Orleans, and everything's in crypts that they just keep reusing because the deterioration of the bodies is so quick.
Yes, that's absolutely right. So this kind of the small section we're in right now is talking about homesteading. So we've got called the tar paper shack, which is a typical type of structure that early homesteaders would have made. Part of the ideas of homesteading is you have to, in order to obtain patent to the land from the government, you have to go onto that place and improve it.
Right.
Part of improving that is building a house and living in it. So the least expensive way to do that is build something like this, which is basically a wood frame with tar paper over the outside of it. There's no insulation, and this looks extremely tiny. Family of 4 might live in here.
Right, and we're talking a 12 by 15 room.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep, keep it small. But that's something else too, is throughout history, I think housing has been fairly small. You go look at the ruins in New Mexico, and everything is a 10 by 10 room, and they had a whole family inside that room.
Absolutely.
Whereas now, you've got, I'm a flooring installer. I'm into new houses all the time. And I see these people that are our age, 50, 60 years old, 70 years old, that are building these 5,000 square foot homes. And I'm going,
what do you do?
I don't understand. I'm wanting to downsize. I'd be happy living in a camp trailer at this point in time.
Right.
It's easy to clean and comfortable enough and all of that kind of stuff. What do you need 5,000 square feet for? But when you drive around Bozeman, you see it everywhere.
It's all over the place.
It's
so
just
yes,
crazy.
Times change, and that's an excellent example. So the section we're in right now is our Native American cultural section, and we have about 10 different tribes just in the state of Montana here.
And how many reservations do you have in Montana? Montana's got
I think it's 7.
Is that all?
I believe it is 7, and then we have different tribes who live on this.
Yeah. You might have the Shoshone and the Arapaho. No,
right.
That's Wyoming.
That's
Wyoming. Got the Flathead.
So we have Salish,
Kootenai. There you go. And you've got the Assiniboine and whatever up in
Assiniboine and the Ani, Gros Ventre tribe.
Up in Poplar area.
You've
got the Crows at Crow Agency, and you've got
right
the Northern
next door
Cheyenne at Lame Deer. Yes.
So there's a tremendous amount of diversity because every different indigenous nation that you just mentioned there, each one has their own language. They have their own philosophy of life, their own religious beliefs, and their own histories. So each of those is pretty radically different. And I would say my biggest challenge interpreting indigenous culture here is demonstrating that diversity. It's not just one tribe and this is what they did. It's like a whole bunch of tribes who lived in different places. So for example, the Crow, they historically have lived on the plains,
right.
Whereas the Salish Kootenai, they have always lived in heavily forested areas. Totally different lifestyles. They eat different foods. Their patterns of life are very different. If you're a buffalo tribe, so for instance like the Crow or the Blackfeet, you're moving to follow those bison herds.
Migrant.
Whereas if your primary source of food is fish, you can sit at on your land.
The edge of Flathead Lake on the beach.
Perfect.
Throwing your line out.
Exactly. So it's very different. We've got some tribes that live way up in the mountains, some are way down on the plains. So it's a tremendous diversity of cultures. And they also have, completely different kind of artistic styles, which you see in some of these pieces. You can look at that particular possibles bag or teepee bag, and you can tell immediately that is Lakota by the pattern and by the colors. Whereas you look at this little beaded bag, you know immediately that is Crow because it has certain characteristics, design, and color that really only the Crows use.
Wow.
So it's pretty
diverse.
in-depth and very diverse. And that's part of the idea of what we're trying to do with indigenous cultures. And again, you're here at a very unusual time because within the next couple of years, we're going to change almost everything in both of these galleries. Our main gallery, where we were before, that will the entirety of that will be an indigenous cultures exhibit.
Wow.
So brand new, we're making it in-house here, and that's really going to focus on diversity of cultures.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to come back in a couple of years.
It'll be something else.
You've got full headdresses, you've got leathers, gloves, all of it with beadwork. I'm
Yes.
not seeing a lot of quill work, but
Quill work is kind of rare. We do have some in our collection, but again, it deteriorates pretty quickly because it's made out of buffalo quill and
porcupine quill.
Porcupine quill.
You said buffalo quill.
Sorry, it's porcupine quills.
I was
Buffalo
going to get excited about going out and petting a buffalo.
No, my mistake. That is not true. And again, in the objects that you see here, these are all from different tribes. And it's the
This
diversity
painted
is
hide
important.
is really cool.
Yeah, this is called a winter count, and we just have a painting of one. We don't have one in our collection, but this is basically a historical calendar. And each year, a different symbol would be added to that winter count to show some important thing that happened during that year. So you can go back to one of these things, 15 years, 20 years, 120 years, and say, this is 1875, because the Blackfeet people had this experience at that time.
Wow.
So it is. This is actually, this particular piece is basically a painted wearing hide. So you would wear that as basically a cape or a coat.
Okay. You guys are really busy today.
Very busy. It's busy all the time.
Is it busy all the time?
It's pretty busy all the time. We generally serve about 250,000 people per year.
Wow.
So it's always busy to some extent. So this area, again, we're preparing to completely reinstall it, but this is an area specific to Yellowstone National Park.
Oh, okay.
And we have a large collection called the Hamilton Povah Yellowstone Collection, and it is one of the largest collections of cultural artifacts relating to Yellowstone Park. So history of tourism, history of the businesses that operated in the park, and very specific to Yellowstone and the Yellowstone story. From before 1872, when the park was founded, to the present day. It's been constant change, and we do what we can to interpret that. We work very closely with Yellowstone National Park and the National Park Service to interpret this story, and they have things in their collection that we don't have, and we have things in our collection that they don't have. And yes, from time to time we will loan each other different things depending on what type of story we're trying to tell.
That's cool that you guys can work together like that.
Yeah, it's critically
And you've got a
important.
full mounted buffalo in here. You've got a park ranger uniform that looks like it's probably from what, the 1920s, 1930s?
About 1926.
Okay, I didn't do too bad.
No, that's very close. So yeah, and this is, again, more of Yellowstone materials, some early, these different magazine articles were written in 1871, so the year before the park was created, and these particular types of articles appeared in major newspapers and magazines around the country as part of the effort to create the first national park.
Okay.
So, yes, these are, you see a lot of fancy woodcuts, and the particular author of this is Nathaniel P. Langford, who went on to become one of the very early superintendents of the park.
Okay.
So, a major promoter of the national park.
I had a house that I remodeled in Thermopolis, Wyoming.
Oh, really?
And above the windows, I've got 1921 Yellowstone touring guides with Model A or
Right.
Model Ts that are on the front cover. They're just little pamphlets. I ended up with 4 or 5 of those that I've still got. Of course, I didn't get rid of them. I'm kind of a hoarder anyway, but Yeah, really, really cool looking at the old pictures.
Right, and there's a ton of that type of advertising material. We call that ephemera. So
Okay.
there's a lot of that related to Yellowstone.
You've got some surveying equipment.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Michael, for taking us through this part of the museum. I'm getting passed off now to John Scannella, and he's going to take us through the paleontology part of this museum, which I'm excited about. I appreciate your time, Michael, and taking it with us and talking us through this. Hopefully there's not too much background noise, as you have been extremely busy today.
Yes.
But it is greatly appreciated, and I'm excited to talk with John.
Great. Well, it's my pleasure. We love having visitors, and there's nothing curators like more than showing off their collections and exhibits. So yes, we encourage everybody to come out and see us whenever you can.
And I always do my podcasts all audio. I will post some pictures on Facebook, but I have a philosophy that coming to a museum, you get a feel for what's here, and you get to see things. There's a whole different atmosphere. It's like going to a football game versus watching it on TV. You may see the plays a little bit closer, but you don't get the experience. And that's what I try and give to my audience, is the experience of coming, and I want them to come back and enjoy it. And the other thing I really like is that I get all of this backstory. These other people that are coming through looking at the displays don't pick up a lot of the backstories that I have gotten as we've come through here. And also, they've stayed out of some of the rabbit holes, which maybe is a good thing, but maybe not.
Maybe not. All right, well, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll catch you later.
All right.
Hey, John. Okay, we are now in the paleontology part of the Museum of the Rockies. I'm here with John, and we just kind of walked through backwards, and now we walked through to the end, and now we're gonna walk back to the beginning. He's got a reason why he wanted to do it this way, and I guess we will find out. Welcome, John.
Thanks.
To Where Am I to Go podcast, and I'm excited with what I've seen on my travel through here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're starting here.
Yep. We're going to start back in time and kind of walk through the age of dinosaurs.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That sounds good. Okay. So where are we starting? Where's back in time begin?
Well, I mean, we could go all the way back to the beginning of the planet, but I thought we'd start here in front of... This is our Bowman Dinosaur Viewing Lab. So we have two fossil preparation labs here at Museum of the Rockies. There's kind of a big lab downstairs and this smaller viewing lab up here where the public can see some of the fossils being worked on.
Okay.
So every summer we go out across Montana and surrounding areas and collect and excavate dinosaurs and other ancient creatures, bring them back to the museum, and then the fossil preparators open up the field jackets, the packages of burlap and plaster that protect the bones.
Okay.
And then carefully remove the rock from around them so that they can be made available for study and potential display.
Okay, and how long okay, let me describe this real quick. We've got a guy in here with a small pick that looks kind of like a dental pick almost, with a little bit bigger handle. He's got a vacuum tube that goes up to someplace, I'm sure a collector of some sort.
Yep.
And he's sitting here looking through a microscope with a bright light on it. And I'm imagining that his eyes at the end of the day are cross-eyed and not very happy to be open. Do they work at this for 8 hours a day, or do they work at it for 10 minutes and then quit?
Well, I mean, the amount of time varies for each person. Some volunteer preparators are here for just a few hours. Some staff are here all day, five days a week, working on specimens. And some specimens can take just a few hours to prepare, and some can take years or decades to prepare, depending on the size and complexity of what they're working with. In this case, or in many cases, we're using magnification to prepare the fossils, to see all the details of what's happening.
I would think that that'd be really eye fatiguing.
Oh,
You haven't spent enough time behind it, or
I mean, you know, I think you might acquire the eye for it, and
the depth perception?
so things are kind of moved around at the moment because we're getting ready for a couple of big events coming up at the museum and some new updates to the exhibit. So you're kind of seeing things kind of shifted around. But this here is a cool specimen of a plant-eating dinosaur named Tenontosaurus that lived in the early Cretaceous period. And what you see here is the articulated skeleton from the head all the way down to basically the tip of the tail. And this dinosaur was found covered in, you see these little triangular things?
Right, yeah.
Those are teeth of a dinosaur named Deinonychus,
Okay.
which is a relative of Velociraptor.
Okay.
And so there are a lot of teeth that were found with this plant-eating dinosaur, and this was suggested to be evidence that these raptor dinosaurs might have been hunting together and working in packs.
Huh. And now, are these actual bones or are these castings?
Those are the actual bones.
Those are the actual bones.
Yeah, so when you see...
Is most of the stuff in here actual bone, or
a lot of it is, yeah.
Okay.
So some of it is casts of the actual specimens that are downstairs in the collections.
Okay. So you guys have a lot of your collection here that has been collected locally.
Yeah, almost.
Wyoming right now is in the middle of a big deal where they're trying to get a lot of their regional dinosaurs back from places like the Smithsonian and other places that our fossils have gone out of state and are in collections in basements someplace else. So I didn't know if you guys have been able to keep a lot of yours or not.
Yeah, the Paleo department here was founded in 1982, and since then most of the collecting is focused in and around Montana and the surrounding northern Rocky Mountain region. So almost everything you see on display as we walk through is from Montana. There's a little bit on display from around the edges in Idaho and Wyoming.
Wow, that is so awesome that you guys were able to preserve that here.
Yeah. And so this Tenontosaurus with the raptor teeth all around it, if you see movies like Jurassic Park or Jurassic World and the raptors are like working together in packs.
Right.
So that is based on fossil evidence. One piece for that is this specimen that's been suggested that there's so many raptor teeth around this plant-eating dinosaur, they must have been shed from more than one individual.
It wasn't just a big dinosaur that had gum disease.
Potentially not. Okay, so now we're going to start walking through kind of, that was moved out of this hall, but now we're going to walk through the Siebel dinosaur complex and start in the Jurassic period, the late Jurassic, and walk through into the Cretaceous period. So this above you here, this is a dinosaur, an Allosaurus, known as Big Al.
Okay.
It is one of the most complete examples of Allosaurus, actually from Wyoming.
I was going to say, they discovered him in Wyoming.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is the actual skull of Big Al, and there's a cast of the skeleton up there. But Big Al is known for having, throughout its skeleton, several examples of pathologies or injuries, healed injuries, and evidence of illness. So you see, here's a rib, a normal rib, and then next to it, this rib with this large bulbous mass on it. And then on its...
Well, and it looks like you can see some other fractures in here too, up towards the top.
Yes, some of that might be taphonomic from just being in the earth for so long.
Okay.
But this large thing here, that's abnormal. And then if you see the foot here, see that large growth on the middle toe? So Big Al was able to live for at least some time with, some kind of injuries or illness or something going on in its skeleton. And so I suspect it was probably, might have been a cranky, grumpy dinosaur given what was going on with it.
Yeah, imagine that.
Not far from where Big Al was discovered, they found the bones of several large, long-necked dinosaurs. Do you see this bone on the right?
Right.
Okay, don't look at any of the signs. What kind of bone is that?
Big.
Right, but what kind of bone?
I have no idea. I don't know my dinosaurs well enough.
That is a rib.
That's a rib?
A single rib, it's 9 feet long.
I was just going to say, that's got to be 9 or 10 foot long.
Yeah, it's huge. So the whole animal was probably in the neighborhood of 80 feet or so in length. So these are massive, massive animals.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
This is the head and neck of another long-necked sauropod dinosaur that was found not far from here in Livingston, Montana.
Okay.
So there's
Just over the hill.
Yeah, so in Montana, you're never too far away from dinosaurs. And part of the reason for that is Montana has a lot of rock from the age of dinosaurs at the surface of the earth. So you don't have to travel too far to be in rocks from the time of dinosaurs. And so now we've kind of walked from the Jurassic into the Cretaceous period. So here again is...
And what's the difference between the Jurassic and Cretaceous?
The Jurassic, so there's the Triassic period, the Jurassic period, and the Cretaceous period.
Okay.
Those are the three periods of the Mesozoic era, or the age of dinosaurs. The Jurassic is what sometimes is thought of as like the golden age of dinosaurs. It's when the big long-necked sauropod dinosaurs are often depicted in books as the time of Stegosaurus in the late Jurassic. And then as you transition into the Cretaceous, in the latter part of the Cretaceous, that's when the horned dinosaurs and the tyrannosaurs and the duck-billed dinosaurs become more common. So you could travel through time, through the age of dinosaurs, but you'd be encountering like different groups of animals in different time periods. So if we went back to, we're going to go to the end of the Cretaceous in the time of T-Rex and Triceratops. But if you go further back in time, you're before the time of T-Rex and Triceratops.
Okay.
And if you go far enough back in time, you're before the time of dinosaurs.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. I just wasn't sure how those, and what are the year periods that those break out to?
66 to about 145 is the Cretaceous.
Okay.
And then the Jurassic goes down to about 201. And then the beginning of the age of dinosaurs is roughly 250 million years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what caused the changes between the different styles of dinosaurs, between the different periods and all that? It couldn't have been climate change, because this is the first time we've ever had climate change. You've got a confused look on your face.
Well, I mean, like... What was the question?
I'm just wondering what caused the evolution or the change between the different periods.
Oh, I mean, a number of things.
But it couldn't have been climate change, because now is the first time we've ever had climate change. I'm being very facetious.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. I mean, right now that's the big thing is we're going to destroy the Earth with climate change, and yet you see all of these different changes, and climate had to have played a part in every bit of it.
Climate definitely had a role in the changes we see. I mean, that's one of the cool things about studying dinosaurs, is that you're dealing with such a large stretch of time that you can see what kind of animals were around when the continents were configured a certain way, or when the climate was a certain way. One of the things we can see well in Montana is for a large stretch of the Cretaceous period, there was a vast seaway over much of North America that stretched from the Arctic Ocean down to the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
And over time, it would expand and contract. And so at some points, standing where we are now, we'd be underwater, or we'd be on beachfront property, and at other times, we'd be on dry land. So behind me are some models of, these are fossils of marine reptiles that were swimming around in the area that today is Montana. But at the time they were here, there was a seaway going over us. And so as this sea was changing over time, that would affect what was going on land, with how much space these animals had to move around, whether or not they could interact with each other, and that would in turn affect which animals survived and which didn't over time.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to imagine driving across Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, all of that area, that it was underwater at one point.
Yeah, but
I mean, it's just. But there again, we did a podcast in Prescott at a bead museum, and he had artifacts from the Sahara Desert, and he says that it's been flooded 3 different times. And you're going, it's all just sand now, but there were populations living in very tropical situations in the middle of the desert.
It's amazing to see the evidence that the planet used to be very different in the past. This here is the first dinosaur that was discovered with its remains inside a burrow. So it was a burrowing dinosaur named.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Eryctodromius. So it was found adult and little juveniles together, living in these burrows.
Now, did they created the burrows themselves, like a badger or something?
Yeah, something.
Like that?
So there's been lots of studies on this animal, and looking at, for example, here, looking at the shape of the bones of the arm, and could it actually dig and do this? And they've built models of the burrow to see, well, were they actually living in the burrow, or were the bones just kind of accidentally washed into the burrow? But all the evidence so far suggests that these animals are actually making burrows and burrowing underground, which is cool to be able to, because you don't typically think of dinosaurs like, moles living underground.
Well, yeah, but the thing is with the long tails and the big bodies and the long legs that are the way that they're designed, it just doesn't look like living in a tunnel would be very efficient.
But apparently they could do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So this area here, this is, right now we have a artwork done by Douglas Henderson, who's a paleo artist who's done a lot of work over the years.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
art.
these are the original artwork done on Maiasaura, the state fossil of Montana. It was originally done for a book, Maya, a Dinosaur Grows Up, by Jack Horner and James Gorman. Jack was the former curator of paleontology here at the museum.
Okay.
And it kind of chronicles, in the late 1970s, there was the discovery of some of the first ever dinosaur eggs and babies and nests, and they found a nesting ground of these duck-billed dinosaurs. And this was the first evidence that some dinosaurs might have nested together in groups, in colonies, the way some birds will do today, if you think of like penguins and pelicans.
Okay.
So this was like a part of a shift in the view of dinosaurs, because for much of the 20th century, the main view of dinosaurs was kind of, cold-blooded, sluggish, swamp-loving lizard monsters.
Right.
And so starting in the in the 1960s, first with the discovery of Deinonychus, that raptor dinosaur, it became realized that some dinosaurs might have been more agile and swift than previously thought. And then in the 1970s, the discovery of dinosaur nesting grounds, suggesting that some of them might have been more social than previously thought, nesting in colonies, and then studies of the tiny bones of these little duck-billed dinosaurs. It was found that they actually couldn't move around that well on their own, but they were in the nest for quite a bit of time, and so someone must have been taking care of them. And
wow.
So this was the first evidence of parental care in dinosaurs. So prior to that, the primary view was, dinosaurs are just like big lizards. They'll just lay their eggs and leave them, and whatever happens to them happens to them. But here was evidence that some dinosaurs might have been actually good parents and cared for their babies.
That's a strange concept. I mean, just to wrap your head around it now.
So the dinosaur was named Maiasaura, which translates to the good mother reptile.
Okay.
Yep. And so
these are all original artworks?
Yep, by Douglas Henderson.
Wow. So these are cool. I've never seen any of this stuff that I know of.
Yeah, they're really nice.
They really are.
They depict some of the ideas about how these dinosaurs were living together in groups, and the growth, the life of one of these Maiasaura duck-billed dinosaurs.
Wow.
So a lot of the
now, are these pictures in his book also?
Yeah, a lot of them were made, I believe, for that
the book.
My Dinosaur Grows Up.
Okay. And is it a children's book, or is it?
It's a good book too.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
So.
So now we're walking through. So here's some more baby duck-billed dinosaurs, a different kind of duck-billed dinosaur, and a large focus of the research here at the museum over the years has been dinosaur growth, how they change as they grow up from babies to adults. So when you walk through the exhibits, you'll see lots of examples of dinosaurs, not just like here's a T-Rex, here's a Triceratops, here's a little one, a medium one, and a big one, and how are they changing as they grow, and what does that tell us about how these animals lived?
So they don't just create a different name when they find a Tyrannosaurus that's mid-sized.
Well, you raise an interesting question, because over the years there have been some dinosaur species that have been named because they're a different size, and then later it's been found, well, actually that's just a different growth stage, a juvenile or an adult or something, of a dinosaur we already know about, because it's been discovered over time that some dinosaurs, they actually change how they look quite a bit as they grow up.
Well, people do, and dogs do.
And if you took a baby human like
Right.
and just made it 6 feet tall, it would look very different than an adult human.
Oh yeah, their arms would be a lot shorter.
Yeah. So
Wow.
over here, these are. Can you tell what these are just by looking at them? Don't read the signs.
I'm not reading the signs.
Okay.
Are they in nests?
These are
Eggs?
Eggs, yeah. Egg clutches of different kinds of dinosaurs found here in Montana. So big eggs of duck-billed dinosaurs, smaller eggs of a different kind of duck-billed dinosaurs. These are the eggs of an animal named Troodon, which is kind of a cousin of the raptors like Velociraptor and Deinonychus.
Now, if you break into these, do you find developed embryos or?
So behind you,
Oh, okay.
here's some eggs that have been broken into, and they found developed embryos.
Wow.
Yeah.
Glad I asked that question.
Wow, yeah. So like that's a little duck-billed dinosaur. You can see the bones inside the egg. There's the embryonic remains of one of these Troodon, a little raptor relative dinosaur. So it's kind of neat to be able to see the bones of, that's a hatching myosaur.
That's hatching. Isn't that cool? Wow.
Yeah,
And
so-
the thing that's hard to wrap your head around is whenever you think of dinosaurs, you think of these monstrosities.
Right.
And yet you're looking at an egg where the egg is probably the size of an ostrich egg, and the head of the dinosaur that's coming out of this is probably it'd fit inside the palm of your hand without any problem.
Do you want to hear something else cool?
Yeah.
So
I always want to hear something cool.
okay, I can tell you lots of cool stuff. So, a lot of research done here over the years, a lot by Jack Horner, the former curator, and a lot of his students. There's a lab downstairs, a paleohistology lab, which is dedicated to cutting up the bones of dinosaurs.
Okay.
And in doing that, you can look inside dinosaur bones and tell how old they were, how quickly they were growing.
Okay.
And so studies of Myosaura, this duck-billed dinosaur, found that it would hatch out of an egg that you could hold in your hand and then grow to be almost 10 feet long in a year.
Wow.
So they were growing very fast.
The oxygen levels and stuff were quite a bit higher back then too, weren't they?
Well, maybe a little bit, but not like radically different.
Well, I was thinking that there was that the air makeup was maybe different to help aid with some of that
Maybe,
growth,
yeah, but they were fast-growing animals, which
Wow.
again is a different view of, before that they were sluggish, cold-blooded
Right.
lizard creatures.
But I guess dogs they mature within a year or whatever. They go from little puppy to
Yeah, they grow pretty fast.
Yeah, a 3-month-old puppy is usually getting close to grown.
Yeah, yeah. But we're talking
I mean,
about.
it takes us 20 years.
Yeah.
So maybe we're the slow ones.
So over here, what you're seeing now, so this is part of the changes that are happening to the exhibit. So a lot of specimens have been temporarily removed because we're moving things around. And then this upcoming summer, 2025, we're going to be opening a new exhibit called the Cretaceous Crossroads exhibit, which is going to highlight a lot of specimens and fossils that haven't been on display before, but showcasing kind of what I was talking about, the changing of the seaway over time and how that affected life on land. So you have different kinds of dinosaurs on land while the seaway is going in, coming out, and also you have the creatures living in the seaway during that time. So like over there, that's an image of a mosasaur.
Right.
If you've seen like Jurassic World, it's a big, basically if you took a Komodo dragon and made it 50 feet long and put it in the seaway, that's a mosasaur. So not a dinosaur, more closely related to lizards and snakes.
Okay.
So all kinds of cool stuff. So this summer, 2025, there'll be all new specimens and exhibits in this hallway. But right now we're kind of in transition.
Wow. Lots of skulls, bones. This is things put together. That's Trontosaurus, right?
No, Tyrannosaurus.
Tyrannosaurus.
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
What is there a difference? Did I pronounce it wrong?
Yes.
Okay. As long as it's me pronouncing it.
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, it's Tyrannosaurus Rex. That's Montana's T-Rex. And so those are the actual fossil bones up there.
Okay.
Yep, and that's a cast of the skull. The real skull is down behind over there.
Okay.
And so this is like, there's only a few skeletal mounts of T-Rex where it's the actual bones that are mounted. There's lots of places to see T-Rex skeletons, but there's only a few where you're looking at the actual fossil standing there. The American Museum of Natural History, the Field Museum in Chicago, the Smithsonian, and a few others, and then here. So this is the Hall of Horns and Teeth, which is probably my.
Oh wow!
One of my
I
favorite
just
places.
turned my head. Wow. This is amazing.
So this hall is dedicated basically to the very end of the age of dinosaurs, the time of T-Rex, the time of Triceratops, and as you can see, we have a lot of them.
This is almost like going to a wildlife safari club, whatever display with all the mounted heads, all except these are all dinosaurs with the big horns and the. I don't know my names of dinosaurs, so but with the big horns that look like. Rhinoceroses or have the big shields and that type of stuff. You've got what, probably 20 of them along this back wall?
Let's see, we got
something close to that, maybe a few more.
Yeah, but
wow.
a display like this highlights just how much these animals changed as they grew.
Okay.
So if you look at a little Triceratops, one of the things you'll notice is that the horns actually curve backwards.
Okay.
Above the eyes, and then as they get older, they curve forwards.
Now that is interesting. Yeah, the smaller ones look a lot like a buffalo.
Okay.
And then as you get bigger, they more like rhinoceros. Other than, do rhinoceroses have horns on the top of their head?
No. I mean, they have the nose.
They got the nose one,
but not over the eyes.
But not over the eyes.
Yeah.
But these ones here come forward, and that all changed naturally.
Yep, throughout growth. Triceratops is a really, we think of Triceratops as one of the classic dinosaurs you think of. But when you really think about it, it's really a weird looking animal because it's got a nose horn kind of like a rhino, and then it has horns over its eyes kind of like a bison. And then it has this big extension of bone over the back of its head, the frill. And then it also has like a beak, sort of like a giant parrot beak at the front of its face.
Right.
And you put all that together on this big, body with a tail, and it's a strange looking animal.
It really is, and this highlights it so well. This is just fascinating, the way you've got it displayed, and it shows exactly what we were talking about back there with the juvenile. Why I could see why you would see something like I don't know what age group this one here is, but it's third from the smallest.
Right.
And then you see the bigger one, third from the biggest, and you would definitely say that that's a different animal than what that one is.
Oh yeah, they look very, very different. And so when Triceratops, was first named in 1889, and over the years after that, as they began finding more skulls of Triceratops in the West, almost every new specimen they found looked a little bit different. So at first they would give it a new name, and at one point there were as many as 16 species of Triceratops named on, the horns are curved a little different, or the frill is a little different. But as we've collected more and more specimens and studied growth changes and other changes and variation in Triceratops, that number has been reduced.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just things I've never thought about. But there again, it's obvious I haven't spent a lot of time in the dinosaur world.
Spend some more time in the dinosaur world.
I need to spend some more time in the dinosaur world. It's just I know a little about a lot, but I don't know a lot about anything. If that makes any sense.
That's all right.
It makes it to where I can come talk to somebody like you and have just enough knowledge to make a fool of myself.
Okay, what do you think this is? Don't read signs.
I would say it's an alligator. It's got the long tail and the spines on the back, but now you're going to tell me what it is.
Yeah. So, so you're right. This is a tail, long tail, and over here are the hips, and you can tell just by looking at it that it's something really, really big.
Right.
And when they initially uncovered the bones of this animal, they thought, well, this is a really, really big thing. It's from the time of Triceratops and T-Rex. It's probably a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So they were excavating it, thinking it was a T-Rex, until they came to this part of the animal, the foot.
Okay.
And then instead of finding claws like you would on a Tyrannosaurus Rex, they found these hoof-like claws,
Okay.
which indicated that this is a big duck-billed dinosaur, plant-eating dinosaur.
Wow.
So it's a duck-billed dinosaur, probably in the neighborhood of approaching 50 feet in length or so, which is bigger than some of the biggest Tyrannosaurus Rex. And then on top of that, not only is it a really gigantic duck-billed dinosaur, but you see these kind of, I'll use my finger here. See these little bumpy things?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's skin all over the scale impressions and patterns. And then let's see, over here is a good place to see. So here's bone.
Right.
And then that's the top of the vertebra of the tail.
Right.
And then up here, there's kind of a little fringe.
Yes.
Let's see those little bumps.
Yes.
So those are scales going down the tail.
Okay.
It's kind of like if you think of something like an iguana has
Pretty large scales, too.
Yeah. But it's rare to be able to see the soft parts of dinosaurs, because when we think about dinosaurs, we usually think about bones, a bunch of skeletons. But in many cases, you can see some of the soft tissue patterns and structures.
I've often wondered how it is that they figured that they were covered in scales or covered in feathers or covered in whatever it is that they're covered in. Wow, this is amazing. Here's another almost complete skeleton inside of a...
Yeah, this is a cast of a Thescelosaurus.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to read it.
Yeah.
It was beyond my...
It's a tough one. But it's a mid-sized plant-eating dinosaur from the time of T-Rex and Triceratops. This one was excavated in Makoshika State Park, which is in eastern Montana. It's the largest state park in Montana.
Okay.
And it's filled with rocks from the end of the age of dinosaurs. And so in this case, those are the arms over there. And there's the ribs over there, and then leg over here, tail going this way. And then in several places, like there.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yep.
What is that?
Is that the skin again? Mm-hmm. There you go.
Skin there, skin over there.
Right there.
Skin there. There's actually a color change that might represent the outline of the belly.
Wow. So did they find internal organs in these things ever? Or?
Sometimes there's impressions or evidence of structures inside the body, which is kind of cool. You need like really, really nice preservation to see that. It's rare.
But I was just wondering if they were able to tell, are they cold-blooded? Were some of them warm-blooded?
A lot of evidence indicates that many of them were warm-blooded, endothermic, very active, fast-growing animals.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Okay, now behind you, this is Tyrannosaurus Rex. Just like we saw with Triceratops, from little babies to really big ones. Here we have from the smallest T-Rex thus far discovered. This little specimen here was found in 2010 by Lee Hall, who is now the lab and field manager here at the museum. He discovered this when he was a student, an undergraduate student here at Montana State University. And then if you walk around, you wind up at one of the largest skulls of T-Rex that's ever been found.
These ones here don't seem to take quite as drastic of a change as a Triceratops.
Well, so they don't have
the eye shape and nostril shape and some of that kind of stuff all stays somewhat consistent.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones, there's such a drastic change from one to the other.
Triceratops has a lot of horns and spikes and things that change a lot as they're growing. And it's suggested that some of that might be related to visual communication with other Triceratops.
Okay.
So you can tell who's who in Triceratops society from afar. The same thing with duck-billed dinosaurs. Some of them have crests and tubes on their heads that change shape as they're growing. So it might be an easy way to indicate, oh, I'm a little one and I'm an adult. But T-Rex doesn't have big horns and frills and things on its head to the degree that you see in Triceratops. But even in Tyrannosaurus, there's been debates over specimens like this one here, this smaller skull. Is this a young Tyrannosaurus Rex, or is this an example of a totally different kind of Tyrannosaur? Because it looks a little bit different.
Yeah,
it's more gracile, more elongate.
The nose shape and the eye shape and coming down the side of the face is very, well, I guess that one's a bigger D. This has, a D is the way I would describe what this lettering is here in front of the eye. I guess it's a nasal passage. But that one is quite a bit more elongated than what any of these others are.
So the question is, are we looking at how this animal is changing as it grows, or are these totally different species?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's been a subject of a lot of study by a lot of different researchers. And
Wow.
May I interrupt just a second?
Yes.
This bone that comes down near the kind of in a pelvis area, that large one, that, what is that?
the pubis there with the big.
Yeah.
So that's the pubis and the pubic boot. So yeah, that's part of the hip bone. So 3 bones of the hip right there.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then over here we have some mounted skeletons, cast skeletons of Triceratops from the collection. This is a juvenile, which even, a juvenile Triceratops is pretty big.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what it's comparable to. A cow.
Cow, yeah.
Yeah, probably a cow.
Yep, and then that one there, what would you compare that one in size to?
Holy smokes.
But
It's huge. It's probably what, 12, 14 feet to the top of the back, and total length would be 20 feet or so.
yeah.
I mean, it's
and,
big.
And that is not full grown. It's a subadult, so it would have gotten
And
bigger.
the rib bones on that's got to be 6 foot
They're
long.
pretty big.
They are.
Yep. And so as we walk through, then we encounter some other, it wasn't just dinosaurs at the end of the age of dinosaurs. There were all kinds of creatures, crocodilians, turtles, and other animals living in and around the river systems of the time. And we find all of that when we're out in the field excavating and trying to piece together what was the ecosystem like at the end of the age of dinosaurs.
This is just amazing, the displays that you have and the way that you've got them displayed. Fantastic.
And then there's, so we've seen Tyrannosaurus rex and Triceratops,
Right.
and then there's also teeny tiny little fossils.
Crustaceans or
Little salamander vertebrae and fish bones. And so you could study the end of the age of dinosaurs from the scale of these little animals that could scurry around in your hand to things like Tyrannosaurus rex and that giant duck-billed dinosaur over there.
Well, it'd be about like now comparing an ant to an elephant.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got the same diversity, just different styles.
Yeah, but it's kind of amazing to think you can travel back over 66 million years, and we're doing, piecing together what was the world really like if we were to go back in a time machine and walk around, not just T-Rex and Triceratops, but everything.
Don't you wish you could?
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's so much history I would love to go back and just observe. In fact, Linda and I were just talking about it here the other day, to be able to go back to Civil War and see what the actual news conflicts and stuff that were going on, with the whole history there, or the Revolutionary War, or going clear back here to walk amongst the trees that are 1,000-foot tall,
Yeah.
and the animals that are, not necessarily have to immerse yourself in it as far as living in it, but to be able to go back and just observe and see how it all worked.
So these are some fossil plants. So even you can see the plant life that was around, flowering plants. There's evidence of palm trees here in Montana. Which again is evidence that the climate was a little bit different back at the end of the age of dinosaurs. And right now we're kind of transitioning from basically this line here, end of the age of dinosaurs, and then the massive extinction occurs, and all the dinosaurs are gone except for birds. And now we're in the age
Everything
of
left except for birds.
insofar as dinosaurs.
Really?
So the only dinosaurs alive today are birds.
Okay, you just blew my mind. The only dinosaurs alive today are birds.
Right.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, and if we could walk through again and look at all the skeletal similarities between some of these dinosaurs and birds, including up to, if you look at the Tyrannosaurus rex skeleton, it has a wishbone, just like you'd see
Right.
like a turkey.
Whoa. Okay.
So dinosaurs are still around today. We just call them birds, but they're.
But what about like alligators and crocodiles? Some of the reptilian.
Yeah.
Are they not descendants from the dinosaurs?
No, they are close relatives. So they're all, dinosaurs and crocodiles. They're all a group called archosaurs. So it's kind of like close cousins. But a crocodile itself is not a dinosaur.
Okay.
Yeah, the closest relatives of like Tyrannosaurus rex around today are birds, which are dinosaurs,
Right.
and then crocodiles are like the nearest thing that's still alive today.
Okay, so tell me about this transition.
Okay.
We've got a cutoff. Is that cutoff like 1,000,000 years? Is that cutoff 1,000 years, 100 years between dinosaurs and whatever else happened to
After the
show up
dinosaurs?
after the
Oh, no, no.
dinosaurs?
I mean, there are places in Montana where you can walk up a hill and you'll be finding dinosaur bones and things that were around the dinosaurs, and then you cross a line. There's a literal line,
Right.
a dark line, and then above that, you no longer find T-Rex, you no longer find Triceratops, and you find other
Mammals and stuff.
mammals become more prominent. Mammals actually show up in the fossil record at the same time as dinosaurs. They both appear around the same time in the Triassic period. Dinosaurs just dominate the world during the age of dinosaurs, and so the mammals are pretty small for all that time. The biggest are maybe the size of like a puppy or a badger or something
Okay.
like that. And then once the big dinosaurs and the extinction happened 66 million years ago, it opens up the opportunity for mammals to then proliferate and become the dominant animals on the planet that they are today.
Okay. Now for the question, what caused that mass extinction? I know it could be an asteroid, it could be a whole lot of things, but what is your view of what happened at a very specific time that created this downfall?
I mean, it's a great question, and there is definite evidence that 66 million years ago, something struck the Earth. There's a crater that's been found off
Right.
the coast of Mexico. It correlates with the right time for the end of the Cretaceous period, and so it looks like at the end of the Cretaceous period, something from space struck the Earth, and it was a very, very bad day. The question is that the totality of what wiped out the dinosaurs? Or were there other factors at play as well? And that's been the subject of a lot of study for a long time.
Okay. Now, as we get into the mythic creatures display, what's the possibility that some of these dinosaurs actually existed clear into, let's say, the 1400s, 1500s, and myth has come out that, you know where I'm going with this. I don't really know how to. I don't really know how to word.
Encountered a Tyrannosaurus rex or something.
Maybe your dragon was actually a Tyrannosaurus rex or a Triceratops or a Brontosaurus or something like that, and those people were seeing these things at those clear at that late period of time, maybe just stragglers. Not quite extinct, but almost.
I mean, it seems unlikely, but it's possible that they might have been encountering the fossils of dinosaurs, if you think about
Okay.
it. Like if you knew nothing about dinosaurs and you were walking along and you came across the skull of a T-Rex coming out of a hillside, what would you think?
Right.
And you have to remember that the concept of extinction being widely accepted is a relatively recent thing.
Okay.
You know, a few hundred years ago, the idea that there were animals around that aren't around anymore was kind of a wild, outlandish idea. So come across the bones of something like a Triceratops or a T-Rex, thinking that extinction isn't a thing, and maybe that could play into why it was thought that some of these creatures or something similar might be around today.
Okay. It's an interesting concept because you have so many, like we went to the Mermaid Museum in Washington, and they have 100 different cultures, mostly sea cultures, island cultures, that all have mermaid tales or myths or whatever you want to call it. But how is it that they are so diverse that you've got 1,000 different cultures that have never interacted with each other that we know of, and they all have this same mythic creature? Or, you know, I mean, you've got leprechauns, and you've got
Yeah.
Bigfoot. We've got all these different things.
The Loch Ness Monster.
The Loch Ness Monster. Yeah, we can go through a whole bunch of different scenarios, but different cultures that have not interacted with each other have these same myths. How does it work?
All right, it's an interesting question.
Okay.
Are you going to walk through the Mythic Creatures exhibit after this?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, well.
Most definitely. That's an intriguing thing to me. But this here's almost like Mythic Creatures, but the display is just so awesome.
Thanks. So now we've crossed over into the age of mammals, basically, the Cenozoic era, which we're still in today. So these are more closely related to us. So things like
the mammoth.
Yeah, the mammoth. This is a tusk of a mammoth. And so it's kind of neat because as you walk through, which is part of the reason why we wanted to go through in chronological time, seeing what's happening as you're going across, seaway goes in, seaway goes out, the dinosaurs go extinct, now there's mammals. And we end up with some of these fossils here. This tusk and that lower jaw are from a mammoth called the Lindsay mammoth, found here in Montana. Actually has tool marks, cutting marks from humans on it.
Okay.
So it's kind of the intersection of paleontology and people.
Have you studied anything about the mammoth kill site outside of Worland, Wyoming?
I have not.
They have a bone that has an arrowhead in it, or a spearhead in it, that was discovered I don't know when it was discovered, but they actually found evidence that they were hunted by man. And have you ever heard of the natural trap in Wyoming?
I think so, yeah.
They've got the whole bunch of fossil record. It's just a hole that's 60 foot in the ground. You can drive on up and look down in it. It's got a big grate over the top of it, but it's pretty cool. It'd be kind of a fun day trip.
Yeah.
At some point in time, if you were ever down in that area. But we're back to where we met up.
Yep.
So I appreciate you taking me through this part of the museum. This has been absolutely fascinating, John.
Well, I'm glad you could come through.
The background stories and stuff are so cool. You've showed me a lot.
Thanks.
So, okay, well, I guess we'll pause this and hit the next part.